Members of 7 parties outlined their positions on the article. They discussed whether it keeps the stakes too high for constitutional amendments. A Liberal Democrat says only a few nations require a public referendum in addition to a 2/3 majority of the legislature for a constitutional revision. He says the hurdle is too high. A Democrat says his party is cautious about only revising Article 96. He says debate on the substance of the Constitution is essential before lowering the hurdles for amendments. A member of the Japan Restoration Party says it wants to lower the threshold to a simple majority of Diet members so the people can get a chance to judge the Constitution. A new Komito member says a constitutional revision should require stricter conditions than a simple majority, which is the threshold for revising ordinary laws. A Your Party representative likens Article 96 to a high wall that has prevented the people from discussing the pros and cons of the issue. A Japanese Communist Party member says lowering the hurdle to a level on par with other laws is a non-starter, as it would strip the Constitution of its status as the top law. People's Life Party says allowing a simple majority of Diet members to initiate amendments could result in constitutional revisions each time a new government takes power. A revision of Article 96 is supported by the LDP, the Japan Restoration Party, Your Party, and the New Renaissance Party. Despite being the LDP's coalition partner, New Komito is cautious about revising the article first. The DPJ is also cautious about revising Article 96 alone, saying debate on the substance of the Constitution is necessary. The People's Life Party and Green Wind are against revising the article. The Japan Communist Party and Social Democratic Party are against any constitutional revision. Parties were equally divided on why they think the Constitution has never been amended. The LDP's Gen Nakatani says the people feel disengaged from the Constitution and its contents, and articles are not fully understood. He says the public should be given a chance to think, decide, and vote for their Constitution. He says a revision will be virtually impossible if the 2/3 rule remains in place. The DPJ's Takashi Shinohara says the Constitution has most likely remained untouched because the public never thought a revision was necessary. He says if Diet members think revisions are needed, they should work hard to muster a 2/3 majority. He says they will only have their own laziness to blame if they fail to meet the numbers.
Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and his government say they want Article 96 to be a key focus of this summer's upper house election campaign. Why Article 96? Liberal Democratic Party Secretary General Shigeru Ishiba explains. Ishiba says the only people who can change the Constitution are the people in whom sovereign power resides. He says members of the Diet can only make a proposal. He says Japan's Constitution must overcome one of the highest hurdles in the world to be revised: the support of 2/3 of both chambers plus a national referendum. He says it means that if 1/3 of the lower or upper house rejects the proposal, a revision could not take place, even if many people are in favour of this. He says the idea is to relax the rules for Diet support for constitutional reform, to make it easier for the people in whom sovereignty resides to exercise their rights. The LDP has compiled a draft revision to the Constitution which includes changing Article 9 and repositioning the Self-Defense Forces as a national defense force. So what lies beyond the proposed revision to Article 96? Ishiba says the LDP has worked long and hard to put together the new draft revision to the Constitution. He says it includes many fresh ideas, such as new rights for the people, provisions for fiscal soundness, and the government's accountability to the public. He says Article 9 is of course an important factor, but the LDP is not trying to change the rules just for the sake of revising Article 9.
Let's take a closer look at the process of revising the Constitution. Part 1 of Article 96 says, amendments to the Constitution shall be initiated by the Diet through a concurring vote of 2/3 or more of all the members of each House, which shall require the affirmative vote of a majority of all votes at a referendum. How do other countries revise their constitutions? We checked countries with close ties to Japan. They all require higher hurdles than other laws for constitutional amendments. The United States and Germany require a 2/3 majority but no referendum. In the U.S., proposals for amendment need 2/3 majorities of both houses and ratification by the legislatures of 3/4 of the states. Other countries require the majority support of Parliament, accompanied by other procedures in some cases. In France, a revision must be supported by a majority in both houses of Parliament. It must then be approved by 3/5 of a joint session of both houses or submitted to a referendum. Italy requires passage in both houses twice, and if sought, a national referendum. South Korea's rules resemble those of Japan. It requires approval by 2/3 of the unicameral legislature and majority approval in a referendum in which a majority of voters participate. How many amendments have actually been made? It's hard to make comparisons because constitutions differ. Other countries have all amended their constitutions, but Japan has not made a single change since its constitution was enacted 66 years ago. Some experts in favor of amending the Constitution are expressing doubts about the proposed revisions to Article 96. We interviewed Keio University professor Setsu Kobayashi, an expert on the Constitution.
Kobayashi says lawmakers are feeling restrained by the Constitution, which has not kept up with the times. But the problem is they're trying to lower the hurdle as quickly as possible because they don't want to be bound. Kobayashi says he understands where they're coming from because he's also a reformist. But the idea that lawmakers are motivated by the desire to be free from the Constitution is unconstitutional. The more power people have, the more they should try to overcome difficult hurdles through straightforward procedures. If they ignore procedures and drive matters ahead using force, politics will not function properly. Japan's government has changed in the last few years. Kobayashi says constitutional reform could become a tool for political wrangling. Kobayashi says Japan will lose its political stability if lawmakers start saying, you broke the rules last time, so I'm going to break them this time. The Constitution is the law above all laws. It's the foundation of politics. If rule breaking begins over the Constitution, Japan will become a lawless, unethical nation. In that respect, Kobayashi believes people who want to change the Constitution must do so in a reserved way, with self-restraint, and keeping an attitude of fair play. He doubts whether Mr. Ishiba means what he says. Ishiba says the LDP is proposing changes to the Constitution that are in keeping with the times. He says there's no underlying motive among people in power to make revisions that will allow them to do anything they want. He says the Constitution will not fit reality unless it is changed. He says he has no intention of changing the very character of the Constitution, which is to restrict the power of those in authority.
Our reporter Yoshino Ogano will update us on this issue. Why has Prime Minister been focusing on the revision of the Article 96? Why?
Prime Minister, the revision of Article 96 is thought to be
the most feasible option available. What I mean by that is that Mr. Abe is trying to work with your party as well as the Restoration Party. But though they agree that the revision should be made, I think there are differences between LDP and these two parties in regards to the priority and the substance of the change. For example, the Japan Restoration Party is focusing on Article 59, which stipulates a bill rejected in the upper house will become law if passed a second time in the lower house, and Article 92 on principles of local autonomy. And the Japan Restoration Party thinks that this should be of high priority. Meanwhile, LDP aims to revise Article 9, and so the co-leader of Japan Restoration, Toru Hashimoto, says that this should be fully debated. Meanwhile, there is the objective to facilitate the holding of a referendum and revising Article 96 for this purpose. And if this is the focus, then the other two parties are willing to follow the LDP, and therefore there have been some modifications on the part of LDP. Will it be possible to revise the article after the upper house election in summer? Well, now we see that the momentum for constitutional debate is building up. Abe's tone is picking up, and therefore at the July upper house election, it is believed that the revision of Article 96 will become a focal issue for sure. And whether or not the LDP and its partners can obtain 2/3 of the seats will be the focus. Now let's take a look at the upper house seats right now. Those proponents of the revision, LDP and the Restoration Party, your party, altogether, they have 101 seats in the upper house. In order to secure 2/3, this means that they have to acquire an additional 50 seats or so. And well, the 121 seats are up for re-election, and securing 162 seats will be a major challenge. But the key is the new Komeito party, the coalition partner. Though they are cautious, it's not the case where the new Komeito is absolutely opposed to the revision. So if we include the new Komeito, it becomes 120 seats. Depending on the result of the upper house, it could be that 2/3 of the seats can be secured. Furthermore, the Democratic Party of Japan, the DPJ. Within the DPJ, there are quite a few lawmakers who are supportive of the revision. And at today's panel meeting, the DPJ, instead of using the term opposed, used the term cautious. And therefore it could be that after the election, it could be that the DPJ will be divided. And if some of the lawmakers in the DPJ are not required to follow party lines, they may cast a yes vote, meaning that it is very difficult to predict what will happen. The constitutional amendment was considered to be somewhat irrelevant issue, and some people have been concerned that the amendment would go against the pacifist principle. How do we have to face the recent debate, which has been quite a bit reactivated? In the 21st century, Japan is witnessing a decline in population, aging of society, and also change in the national security environment. And this has led to Japan questioning its position as a nation. The debate on the Constitution, which determines the basic principle of the nation, is in the focus now. No matter which side, pro or con, one takes, it is a healthy debate. Discussion on Article 96 will question what the Constitution is. Article 9 renounces war and the maintenance of land, sea, air force, and this will be put to the question. And also people will question to think about the governance mechanism. With 2 months left before the upper house election, we need to carry out calm and fruitful discussions so that both voters and politicians can make a choice that they can be convinced with. Thank you, Mr. Gon.